Good Wednesday morning. Boomer's using his flex scheduling days this week. It's another WFH day. Hashtag WFH for the big guy as he's got another charity golf tournament. He's raising money for the children, ladies and gentlemen. This is not just like an Anthony Gallo situation where he works from home because his shoulder's hurt. Boomer is raising money for the children. He is there again, out east, broadcasting with us. And, Boomer, I'm going to start this morning. I'm going to read you something. Good morning, first of all. Good morning. How are you?
Yeah, good morning, G. I am doing well. I guess you want to read me something this morning, so why don't you go ahead and read what you have to say?
I'm going to read you something.
All right.
Are you an Andy Martino guy? Do you like Andy Martino?
I do like Andy. He's good. He's plugged in. He seems like he knows what he's writing about and talking about.
Okay, all right. So Andy Martino, he writes this thing, all right? And there's a line in here that is just absolutely shocking to me, all right? So Andy Martino says that he expects Hal Steinbrenner to bring Brian Cashman back and then Brian Cashman bring Boone back. That's not shocking to me. That's something that I kind of expect is going to happen. But then he says the only way that this could go sideways for either of them, meaning Cashman, Boone, is, and then he writes a sentence. All right? What do you think the only way that it could go sideways for Brian Cashman and Aaron Boone would be? In your opinion, you are as locked into the New York Yankees as anybody. That's all we've been talking about. What could be the thing, in Andy Martino's opinion, that could change the fate of Aaron Boone and Brian Cashman? What do you think it could be?
What could it be? What could it be? Could it be Hal Steinbrenner saying we have a tight budget and we're only going to spend so much money and you're going to have to make it work within the constraints of the budget?
That's a great guess. That makes a lot of sense to me.
Oh, it makes a lot of sense.
That makes a lot. That is not what he wrote. That is not what he wrote. But that's a very, very good guess. And Brian Cashman may be saying, listen, I can't operate in that world and I'm going to step down. Like that. That would make sense to me. That's not what he wrote. What he wrote was, the only way it seems that this could go sideways for either of them is if fan vitriol becomes so toxic that Steinbrenner decides he must initiate a GM change that no one believes he wants to make. So you're telling me that Hal Steinbrenner is now got his ear to the ground and is listening for fan vitriol to decide whether or not Brian Cashman is coming back or not?
You know, I think of two owners in sports here. Actually, I'll give you three owners in sports in New York that have gone down this road in the last 5 years because of that exact thing that Andy Martino is writing about, fan vitriol. Okay. Number one would be Christopher Johnson when they decided to get rid of Todd Bowles. And Peyton Manning recommended Adam Gase.
Okay.
It was a flat team. It felt flat. I think Christopher, for the first time, because Woody was over being the ambassador to Britain, reacted to the fans and basically said, we got to make a change. He made the change, and then Woody came back and said, we got to make another change. So I would say the Johnson brothers felt the fan vitriol. That would be one example.
That's
the other
one example. Yeah.
The other example, of course, is John Mara. Now, John Mara basically says that he reads everything that comes across his desk, that he responds to fans, he reads his emails, he writes letters. Fans of the New York Giants have been disgusted over the last 6 or 7 years. There have been, you could call it knee-jerk reactions if you want, due to the fan base's anger towards the team and the lack of winning. So I think John Mara would be one. And the other one would be Jim Dolan, the owner of the Rangers. When Tom Wilson ragdolled Artemi Panarin during the 2020 season without fans in the building, some fans, I was there that night, but and they ragdolled Panarin, and he came in and he cleaned house the next, right after that season was over, shocking to all of us. And I think he responded to the fans' ear of or the ire, I should say, of the fans, because it was an embarrassing loss to the New York Rangers, and it was right in front of everybody in their building.
So where is Hal going to hear this from? This is the question I have. Because is he listening to us?
Okay. No. He's going to hear it from Randy Levine. He's going to hear it from Lon Trost. He's going to hear it from the people that are working here in New York. He's going to hear it from everyday fans who are not renewing their season tickets. He's going to be hearing it.
But how does he hear it from those guys? Like, You know what I'm saying? Like, so he's not going to hear it directly. He's probably going to go to the head of season ticket sales, and he's going to say, hey, listen, this, and this is looking terrible. These guys dropped, and their reasons they're giving me is the fact that Brian Cashman is coming back. And the other thing is, too, like, we don't know if he's coming back, and the vitriol might come after the decision is made. Right. That's the other part of this.
Yeah, well, I mean, look, there's still time for vitriol to, everybody's been bloodletting over the last 4 or 5 days, and we know why, and we saw how embarrassing it was for them to lose and get swept by the Astros. So, that particular sentence does not shock me in any way. I mean, it actually makes a lot of sense to me when I think about it.
But isn't that famous?
I just gave you.
Isn't that famous line? If you start listening to the fans, then you start sitting with the fans.
That's mainly the coaches. That goes to coaches. It doesn't really go so much to GMs and, well, really owners. Nothing goes to the owners because the owners own. They own the team. They make the decision. And, again, we were talking about the Yankee brand and what it is and what it means, what it stands for, how popular it is across the globe. It's one of the 2 or 3 main franchises in this country. And there's a lot that goes into these decisions. And that line right there by Andy, I think makes a ton of sense to me, simply because of how I still can't believe it. I mean, just how angry Yankee fans have become over the last week or so.
All right, so if you are a Yankee fan that wants Brian Cashman out, and we are to read this correctly in this Andy Martino article about fan vitriol could sway Hal Steinbrenner and whether to keep Brian Cashman and then end up keeping Aaron Boone, what do you do? Because apparently you've got the power. You've got the power to be able to move on from your general manager if you are pissed off. So what should be the advice to the Yankee fan that wants Brian Cashman out? Send emails to the Yankees brass, call up our show and scream about it. I mean, go to Yankee Stadium and protest with signs. I mean, what if there was a group of Yankee fans that showed up outside of Yankee Stadium with fire Cashman signs, and there was hundreds of them out there? Would somebody from inside Yankee Stadium go, oh, my God, look at this. We're going to have to do something about it. Maybe they could hire a banner and a plane pulling a banner like the Jets fans did with Fire Idzik. So, yes. I mean, if you're one of those guys this morning that really wants Brian Cashman out, it's up to you. So organize something. What do they call that? Get together, assemble, and try to get the general manager out if you want to, because apparently Hal Steinbrenner's listening to you guys.
Well, that's what they call a protest, my man.
Yep.
And people are protesting a lot of things these days. So why not protest whether or not you want your general manager? You can have it on 2 sides of the street: the guys that want him and appreciate what he's done for everybody, and the other side that thinks that it's getting stale and it's getting complacent and that it's not what they want. So everybody's got an opinion about it. All you have to do is listen to this radio station, and you have everybody calling in talking about they got to do this, they got to do that, they got to get rid of this guy, that was a bad trade. I mean, it's endless. So I will say this for Hal Steinbrenner, that it would be easy to keep Brian Cashman in place. That's the easy thing to do. That's the I'm sure he has a great relationship with Brian. They've known each other for a long time. Many people say that Brian Cashman is, one of the Steinbrenner kids himself because he's gotten so close to that family over the years. I can't dispute what Andy Martino wrote. I just can't.
All right, so do you believe, because, we're right in the thick of it, listening to Yankee fans, do you think that the vitriol has been loud enough from the fan base for Hal Steinbrenner to consider a change? Because I don't. I think it's been loud, but it hasn't been to the point of the other examples that you have given. Those other examples, you're talking about teams that were just, dead. That didn't feel like they were going anywhere. Now, the Yankees, obviously, after getting swept by the Astros, it doesn't feel like they're ever going to get over that hump, but they still won their division. They still made it to the ALCS. It's not a franchise that's dead. There's...
No, it's just a fan base that is just,
they're sick of it.
I don't want to say their expectations are unrealistic, because they are the 3rd highest paid team in the league. So you expect them to be in the playoffs every year. The one thing I will say, and I don't think people understand or really see it the way I see it. I'm not a Yankee fan, you know that.
Mm-hmm.
But I do recognize how many decisions Brian Cashman has made just in the last 5 years alone, since you and I started working together. and how he has patched together this team when guys have gotten hurt early in the season to keep the team relevant when, it didn't get off to a great start like it did this year. This year they got off to a great start, and he still made changes in season, and some of those changes really worked out well. Some of those changes, I was reading that Andrew Benintendi, if they would have made it to the World Series, he probably would have been active for the Yankees. He would have been able to come back from his injury. So
yeah,
there are things that he has done over the last 5 years, and you and I have sat here saying that's amazing. That's amazing.
Sure,
he got that guy off the couch. That guy's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I was thinking about this yesterday, and I was listening to Tiki and Tierney on the way home, and BT was going through some of the Brian Cashman miscues and talking about the starting pitching and this and that. And I thought to myself, I was like, all right, Brian Cashman has been the general manager since 1998. If you wanted to create a case that Brian Cashman was a great general manager, a terrible general manager, an okay general manager, below average, above average, you could, because he has made so many moves since 1998. There is so much evidence there. I could sit here and give you a PowerPoint presentation for 15 minutes on every great Brian Cashman move and how he should be the general manager for life. And then I could give you a 15-minute one on how bad he's been with some of the moves that he's made. And at the end of each one of those, you would think, oh, man, he's got to be fired. Oh, man, he's got to be the general manager. So really what it comes down to, not the specific moves because there's been so many, it's the end result of the team. And is that acceptable to ownership? That's the bottom line.
Yeah, I would also say this about Brian Cashman. You can never, ever accuse him of not working the phones, not working an angle, not calling on somebody, getting the CC Sabathias of the world, the Stantons of the world, the Garrett Coles of the world, bringing those guys in, fortifying the team with Dwight Gooden and Darryl Strawberry back in the day. I mean, it's endless. I mean, he is going 24/7. 365, I feel like. I don't feel like he ever has an opportunity to ever rest or relax. Now, look, Jordan Montgomery said it, heavy are those pinstripes. And when you are the general manager, this is what comes along with it if you don't win a World Series. And on top of that, getting swept by what is turning out to be the biggest rival that you face over the last 5 or 6 years in the playoffs, the Astros. So, again, I am not shocked by that line in that article that Andy wrote. Yeah, it does make a ton of sense. And I do believe that there is always that attached to every general manager for every team, not just the Yankees, but for the Yankees. And for this specific year, it's louder than I would say the last 5 to 10 years, just simply because of the way that it ended.
Yeah, all right. So we know that John Mara reads his emails and reads his mail. Like, he has talked about that. He says that, he responds to a lot of people. He sees a lot of stuff. I mean, is Hal plugged into those things? Like, I don't even know how you would send Hal Steinbrenner an email. Or is he going through, like, if I wrote a letter and sent it to Yankee Stadium and said Hal Steinbrenner on it, is he getting that? Like, this is what I want to know. Like, where is he getting his information about where the fan base is? Is he seeing the Astro fans take over Game 4 in Yankee Stadium, all the Yankee fans leaving? Is he hearing the boos in the stadium? I mean, are those the things that he's listening to? Is he reading the columns in the paper? Is he listening to the callers on this radio station?
Everything.
And then,
social media, everything.
You think he's that plugged in?
Of course, you have to be that plugged in.
He's scrolling through the comments on the Yankees Twitter account.
Look, I don't know if he's doing it himself personally, but I'm sure that he's in touch with PR. I'm sure he's in touch with the business side. I'm sure he's in touch with the baseball side. I mean, look, there are a million things that go on behind the scenes that we don't even know about that these owners are obviously involved. I mean, all I can tell you is that if I were an owner, I would be involved. I mean, that'd be part of the fun of owning a team. Would be able to decide, who's going to work for me and who's not going to work for me, who I'm going to fire, who I'm going to hire, the excitement of the fan base. I mean, like, when they signed Garrett Cole, do you remember how excited the fan base was?
Oh, my God, yes. It was great. Big press
conference.
conference.
Do you remember when they traded for Giancarlo Stanton, how excited the fan base was?
100%. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, those are days that, I think if you're a Hal Steinbrenner and Brian Cashman, those are days that you live for, because those are great days, because everybody's happy about what's happening. Now, whether or not the player ends up living up to the contract or the trade or whatever that you end up giving him, that's a whole nother story. And then their fate is usually tied to their success, because somebody's got to roll the dice. Somebody's got to make a power decision. Somebody's got to say, okay, this guy is going to be our starter for the next 6 years. He's going to be the ace of the staff. And I better hope, and he better hope that he lives up to that contract, or I'm going to be hearing it from my fan base. So.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like Steve Cohen is a guy that is plugged into what the fans are saying because he was a fan. He still is a fan. And he was someone that was from the outside looking in, even though he had a small stake in the Mets. He's on Twitter. He is active on Twitter. He brought back the black jerseys because everybody was asking for it. He scrolls through his mentions and sometimes responds to Mets fans. I feel like he is a guy, because of where he came from and being a fan and then owning the team, knows exactly what the fan base is thinking. Hal Steinbrenner has been in the business of the Yankees his entire life. I don't know if he loves baseball. I don't know if he loves – I mean, it's the business of the Yankees for him. So how clued in is he to the passion and what the fan base wants? That's a question I have no idea what the answer is.
Well, everybody says, or not everybody, but a lot of people have called Hal the absentee owner.
Yep.
The owner in hiding for whatever reason. I mean, I don't necessarily agree with that, but I just know that he is not nearly as flamboyant as Dad was, not on the back page. I don't necessarily know that he cares about the so-called back pages like his dad did back in the day. All I can tell you is that now they're writing about what the team is worth. They're talking about how they have to spend more money. I mean, it's all kind of like lining up. And now comes this article about, the fan vitriol. So hey, look, the writers are onto something. They know it better than we do simply because, they're there every single day covering the team.
Mm-hmm.
We hear the amplification of it all here on the radio station by the fan base that calls in and complains. But, I go back. I say, you know what? Every year they're in the freaking playoffs, I feel like. Every year they are relevant. At the end of the year. It seems like we're always talking about them come, late September, October, and then once the season is over, how much more do we talk about them?
Oh, sure, of course, because they're active in the offseason as well. But eventually, you got to get back to winning championships because that's what this organization is all about. All right, it is Boomer and Gio on the Fan and CBS Sports Network. We got Jerry Recco here in a couple of minutes.